you said, was one of the most, a very frustrating experience. We were advised that Mr. Delano, who had put the various elements of work out to bid with subcontractors, because of the delay, subcontractors weren't sitting around waiting for our job to begin. They went off and took other work. Mr. Delano had to At this point, Mr. Delano's firm now had to spend, we're being told this job will start, we hope, in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We'll be here through September. So now Mr. Delano is looking at another 7 or 8 months of work from this time forward, and is asking us to pay him for the time to be spent here during that period of time. We have used various analogies in our conversations of trying to understand what this all means and why. The reality is that what was originally going to be a 7 or 8 month job is turning out to be a 13 to 14 month job from last June until next September. It's not as if Mr. Delano started the job and created these problems. He was confronted with delays in the town and the waterproofing issue, which ground our project to a halt for almost 6 weeks. Susan, is there anything that you want to add to the description as to why we are confronted with this issue right now?
No, but I'm just seeing a small mathematical error that I just want to correct rather quickly.
Well, do you want to finish the explanation first and come back to that error?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there were 3 reasons why the delays occurred, and I think it's really rather simple. We've sat here, and again, our audience just looks and they just see a 3-minute discussion and think that that's it, but I think people really need to understand that we spent in excess, Tony and I just together spent at least 50, 60 hours on this particular issue. There were 3 major reasons, I think, for this delay. The first, some design changes, some second guessing, it's understandable. Certainly nobody was happy with the fact that the mailboxes were changing to the way they were, and we really tried and spent a lot of time trying to figure out a way not to block window space and do things. That resulted in delays. We did have some delays.
Those conversations were held after the contracts were signed.
After the contracts were signed.
Right.
We kind of went back and second guessed. We also got some new people to the board, and we took a couple of steps back to take a few more steps forward. The second thing was changes within the town of Guttenberg delayed us also. We lost 2 or 3 key buildings department officials who left. Our things were lost, misplaced, not found. New people came in, and it took some time for them to all get up to speed. I will say that Matt was pretty good in working with them and helping them, but it still delayed the process quite a bit. The concrete pad job, I think, was the third and most significant reason for the delays. We opened things up, and they were worse than we thought. And at that point, Matt and I both agreed, and Matt's the one, I think, who kind of said, absolutely, we need professional help. And we did. And we need to get an architect in there.
An engineer.
Architect.
Waterproofing consultant.
Well, a waterproofing consultant, thank you, in there to really, we had 3 different problems under the concrete pads. We had anticipated them, but they were worse than we thought they were going to be. So when we put all of that together, there were delays. And what I think, simply put, what Tony expected was going to be a short-term job, and things that he had awarded and representations that he had made, we've gone over our time frame. I will tell you this. In conclusion, I go to a manager's lunch once a month, and I sit with about 25 managers every month. And it's kind of a support group and learning seminar at the same time. And when we go to the support group side of things, and we talk about other buildings that are doing lobby renovations, I hear stories about 20 years, I hear stories about 14 years, delays. We're not unusual. This is not unexpected. Boards change, people try to rethink ideas. In the grand scheme of things, even though it's a $1,700,000 contract, this is not unheard of to have a change order like this and to have these delays. And I know I gave you a benchmarking study today, and I would tell you, I gave you the raw data, but these are all managers that I deal with on a regular basis, and they will all support the same story. They've all got construction delays. When you approach a lobby renovation, it's the toughest thing anybody ever does. And everybody tries very, very hard to make it perfect and satisfy the greatest number of people.
No,
So
I-
we have some of the delays, I think, because we've all tried to do that.
Right, there's nothing more controversial in a homeowner association than doing lobbies. I've talked to other people that I know who are presidents of associations, and say, have you done your lobbies yet? So, it is definitely the most controversial, and we actually started it. Harlan, Martha, and I were here when this project initially started, which, if I remember correctly, was in 2004, when we started talking about it. And here we are sitting in 2007, and we haven't even put the first nail in the wall yet. And one of the reasons that it's taken so long is we tried to address the concerns of new directors as they came on, because everybody had their own ideas. Nonetheless, we did enter into a contract 9 months ago or so with the intent of starting this project last summer.
We also listened to feedback we got.
Yeah.
When we had
Yeah.
open forum on things, we had
Right.
feedback and we listened to that.
Can I just remind you of one thing? You weren't really doing too much, and I don't want to say this is me, it's not, I'm just putting it in reference for the time frame. February 5th, I will have been here 4.5 years. We really started this thing, it's only 4.5 years. I mean, I know you've done some preliminary stuff, but we didn't use a whole lot of that. So if I just put it in the time frame, and I'm not saying I did it, but I know it's a 4.5 year reference point.
Yeah.
That's not so unusual, folks, 4.5 years to get to a lobby.
Okay. At this point, what I'd like to do is open up the floor to any questions that anybody around this table may have. And just,
You know what? I can't stay on that long, but I do have a question. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First, I know that Susan and her management team has done a lot of work in negotiating this price down, because I know there was a substantial higher price. And I appreciate it. I think that was great that they were able to negotiate it down. And I know that our president, down to all the directors and our attorney, have diligently pursued and done a lot of work with this lobby project. And there's no doubt about it, the lobby project has to be done, and has to be done ASAP. But the problem I have is, firstly, the main problem I have is that I've sort of lost faith in our contractor and the nickel and dime that has come about. And I'm sorry, Tony, it's nothing against you personally. I just think it's become a nickel and dime project. I just didn't come up with the assumption of, obviously I'm going to vote no against this, but I didn't just come up with this. I come from a family of contractors. And not only did I speak to family members, but I also spoke with other GCs. And this is a typical problem that a lot of contractors have. And the main issue I have here is the nickel and dime, and I think not only it's starting to begin, that could run away with it. And I just don't want to see that done. But the main thing is that I know that Tony had a lot of problems with the permits, and obviously with the pads. And obviously the pad, we couldn't foresee that. But the permits, we couldn't foresee that the total problem we had and the difficulty that the town has given us. But I know that all contractors, and I mean all contractors, take into consideration that there could be problems with permits. And that when you go, sometimes you have to go in front of planning boards. And sometimes, some planning boards only meet once a month. But I do know this, is that when we were speaking about this, and Tony did say, after January 1st, prices are going up. I understand that. But here we were in October, towards the end of October, to beginning of November, we didn't have the permits yet, and Tony was talking about this. But here we are now, beginning of February, but actually this came about in the middle to the beginning of January. We started finding out there was going to be an increase. And the problem I don't understand is what took place in the last 2 months that would change the price drastically. Now I understand that originally the price was going up because prices were changing. Not that Tony did a lot of work, extra work there. And I'm not saying that he probably did do some extra work. But to the degree that he did, that to me is a judgment call. But that the prices were going to go up. I spoke with a lot of contractors trying to do that go up. When we originally talked about this contract, regular gas was at the price of $3 a gallon. It's now $1.93. Home heating fuel was substantially higher. I don't have the exact quote to that. And it also had a drop.
Those are
Okay.
things.
So as far as price increase,
Wait,
I don't see that, okay? As far as time
That's
permit, well, that's totally judgment.
Anthony, slow down a second. Anthony, slow down a second.
Stop.
Because
There's-
what you're missing is that the